Okay, my name is Meg Curtis. I work with UT Extension, and today we are going to talk about whole grains and dairy and protein foods. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay. Can everybody see that? Are you able?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. All right. So we've been talking about the different food groups in the past couple weeks. And so today we are going to talk about the grains, the protein, and the dairy. So the grains are things like macaroni, spaghetti noodles, cereal, bread, crackers. Those are all examples of the grain food. And this is a picture of a wheat grain and the different layers. And so when you're eating your grain foods, they would like for us to eat at least half of those to be whole grain. Has everybody heard of whole grain before? Yes. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to try to explain to you what whole grains means. And so when they crush up the grain to make the flour, some companies take the outer shell away, and that is where the B vitamins and the fiber is. So when they take that away, you're losing those nutrients. But when they leave it on, then you are getting more fiber and more vitamins. So that's why they call it whole grain, because they use the whole piece of the grain to make the flour to make your grain foods. All right, so how do we know if a product is a whole grain? Well, the first ingredient in the on the package has to have the whole word. It might say whole grain wheat, it might say whole grain oats, or whole grain wheat flour, but that first ingredient has to have the whole word to be a whole grain product, because the ingredients are put in order, where that first ingredient is your most amount in the product. So, and then it goes in descending order, where the last ingredient is your least amount. So here is a list of ingredients for oat cereal. And you'll notice that that first ingredient has the whole word. So this product is a whole grain product. So let's see here. All right. So if your bread is dark in color, that does not mean that it is a whole grain product. Or if your crackers are dark in color. They do add molasses to some of our products to make them look darker, to make us feel like we're getting something nutritious. So let's look at these two loaves of breads. They're both dark in color. They both have the word wheat on the front. So we can't go by the packaging or the color. Again, the first ingredient, looking at the ingredients and seeing if it has that whole word. The 100% whole wheat bread says stone ground whole wheat flour. So that one is a whole grain bread. The other one says enriched wheat flour. So it is not a whole grain. Okay. Enriched means that they have taken that outer shell off, and then they have added a few vitamins back in it. So that's what enriched means. So they add a few vitamins left back into it, but they don't add the fiber back in. So again, when you pick a whole grain product, you're going to get more vitamins and more fiber. So why do we need fiber? because our large and small intestines are 25 feet long. If we took them out and laid them out flat, they would be 25 feet long. So in comparison to this giraffe, who's 18 feet long, our intestines are even longer than that. So that kind of puts it in perspective on how long our intestines are. And so that fiber is going to help the food get through your digestive tract a lot quicker and easier. So that's why fiber is so important. Now, you can get some fiber from your fruits and vegetables, but again, whole grain foods offer that fiber also.
Meg, Jacqueline asked in the chat if organic products are better.
On the issue of vitamins and fiber, no. I mean, they may have some other benefits to them, but they're still going to give you the nutrients, the same nutrients. So there isn't any difference, but I mean, there are other things that you can buy organic because of how they treat the product, of not using sprays and different things on them. So does that help? All right. Okay. So our dairy food group, we should have 3 servings of dairy a day. So you can either drink 3 glasses of milk a day, or you could have a glass of milk, a serving of cheese, and a serving of yogurt. But you do want to get those 3 servings in, because the dairy foods have the calcium that our bones need. And then that calcium gets stored in your bones, just like you put money into a bank and you're saving it for a rainy day. Well, that's what you're doing with calcium. You are saving it in your bones until you get older. And then once you get older, you start losing calcium out of your bones. So you want to have a good amount of calcium saved up so that you don't get osteoporosis when you get older. And osteoporosis means you have holes in your bones and they break very easily. My grandmother had this, and she stood up from a chair and her ankle broke just from standing up. So your bones do break very easily when you have this. So it's important to get those dairy foods. And if you have children, it's important for them to make sure that they're getting the dairy foods so that they are saving it for when they get older. Now, when you are choosing your dairy foods like milk, you want to go with the low-fat dairy foods, because milk and then the meats all come from animals, and they carry saturated fats. And so that saturated fats clog up your blood vessels. So if you eat a lot of saturated fats throughout your life, it will clog up your blood vessels. And as you get older, you can have heart attacks and strokes. So going back to the dairy food, the whole milk has 8 grams of fat versus skim milk. It's got 0 grams of fat. So if you can go with the low-fat milks and yogurts and cheeses, that's going to cut back on the cut back on the saturated fats. But it won't cut back on the calcium, because you'll notice each one of them has 30% calcium. So when they take the fat out of the milk, they do not take anything else. Your vitamins and your nutrients stay the same. So you're not going to lose out on calcium if you go to a lower fat milk. Did someone have a question? Because I did hear someone speak.
They ask if it's better to drink cow's milk or goat milk.
Say that again.
In the chat, it said, is it better to drink cow's milk or goat milk?
I do not have an answer on goat's milk. I do not know the nutrients of that. If you purchase goat's milk, do you get a label on it that informs you of what fat and what nutrients is in it? Because I've never purchased goat's milk before.
I don't know anything about it either.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You would have to look that one up because I am not familiar with goat's milk. But if it has a label, what you can do is compare it to cow's milk and see what the difference there could be. All right. Okay. And then with your protein, again, that comes from an animal. So you want to go with the lean meats, chicken, turkey, fish. Those are all lean proteins. And then beans are plant proteins. So those don't come from an animal, so they don't carry the saturated fats. So possibly eating beans maybe once or twice a week in place of meats would also help cut back on the saturated fats. Depending though on what you put in the beans, if you add a lot of fat to the beans to cook them, then they maybe also have fats in it, depending on what you've added to them. But if your piece of meat is the size of a deck of cards, then that is a 3-ounce piece of meat. So you really don't have to have scales on weighing them. Typically, you need about 6 ounces of protein a day. So that would equal 2 decks of cards a day of protein. Now, other proteins would be eggs, peanuts and peanut butter also are considered proteins. So you can use those as your protein foods also. All right. So this is going to be our last class. And so I have put this link for you to go to fill out an exit paperwork. I also have a QR code there if you want to scan it. It's just one sheet of paper to do the exit paperwork. But if not, I think I passed them on to your family advocates and they can pass the link on to you. So if you did fill out the first set of paperworks, please try to go to do this last papers. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the, hold on just a minute, stop sharing. There we go.